Good morning, everyone. The video that we are going to present is about joint and byproducts entitled, How to Make Petrol or Gas, or Other Main Products from Crude Oil. First, what is crude oil? Crude oil is a complex mixture of different hydrocarbons that are composed of hydrogen and oxygen molecules. These two elements make up approximately 95% of crude oil. Crude oil is created when plant and animal matter undergoes complex decomposition deep underground under high temperature and pressure. This is a very slow process, and that's why crude oil is considered to be a non-renewable energy source. Let's watch this.
We used to think that in the future we'd all be zooming around in flying cars that run on flowers and smiles. Well, this is the future, and oil is still the lifeblood of the modern world. The world's roads are packed with 800 million greedy vehicles, guzzling their way through 7 billion litres of petrol. Keeping the fuel lines flowing safely with this flammable liquid demands a potent mix of engineering brilliance, chemical wizardry, and mucky manual labour. So, how do they do it? Texas, USA. From the look of this hot, barren, windswept landscape, you'd be forgiven for assuming this area must be a rural backwater. But in fact, this is one of the richest spots in the world, because Texas is home to the American oil industry. They've been drilling for oil here since 1894. But it wasn't until 1901 that the oil boom really took off, when at a stroke, the Lucas Gusher tripled US oil production. Since then, almost 60 billion barrels have been pumped out from the Texan soil. And if the oil companies have got their sums right, there are reserves of another 10 billion barrels or so still to be extracted. The sticky, smelly black liquid thereafter is crude oil, which is the raw material needed for making petrol. It was formed from the remains of tiny sea plants and animals during the Permian period. Thanks to the action of heat and pressure, 250 million years later, they've been transformed into one of the world's most vital energy sources.
This is black gold, Texas tea, the best there is. It smells like rotten eggs, but it also smells like money.
On this hot, sticky Texas morning, the crew of Derrick Rig 62 are setting to work sinking a new well. Every month, more than 1,000 new wells are drilled here in Texas, and together they pump out over 900,000 barrels of crude every day. To keep that oil flowing, producers like Occidental Petroleum will sink more than 100 wells a year. So for guys like Rick Baker, this hot, noisy, back-breaking work is very much just another day at the office.
I love this job a lot, you know. I've been doing this for 11 years. We take pride on our work. It's like a big family out here on this rig right here.
But the team face an arduous task getting the oil out. In this area, known as the Permian Basin, the crude lies up to 2 miles down, trapped in rocks over 250 million years old. To reach it, they use the Derrick's huge motors to grind a diamond-tipped drill bit deep into the earth. But all the friction creates huge amounts of heat, so high-pressure drilling fluid is pumped down a pipe to cool the cutting head. The fluid then carries the cuttings back to the surface, where they're left to settle out in mud pits. It's noisy, dangerous work. Rick needs to keep the pressure on the drill bit just right. Too little and it won't cut. Too much and it will fracture. What's more, he must constantly be on guard for the threat of gas releases, which could cause catastrophic explosions.
Working on a drilling rig is real dangerous. You have to be pretty well tough to be out there doing this kind of work.
As they drill, the team need to regularly attach new 9-meter lengths of drilling pipe using an enormous 5-ton automated wrench called an iron roughneck. With the drill head burrowing at around 5 meters an hour, this arduous task must be repeated every couple of hours, 24 hours a day. The drilling only intermittently halted to line the well. Eventually, if they're lucky, they strike oil. Initially, the pressure of the trapped oil forces it through small holes in the finished pipe and up to the surface. But this natural pressure doesn't last forever. So to keep the crude flowing, they use one of these. This is called a pumping jack, or nodding donkey. The circular motion of the powered flywheel is converted into vertical motion, and like an enormous metal syringe, it sucks the oil to the surface. Dotted across the empty plains, these quietly insistent nodding donkeys harvest the black gold of Texas. But these oil fields are many miles from where the crude oil is needed. So a series of pumps feed it to a pipeline and off on a 500-mile journey to the other side of the state. This extraordinary citadel of gleaming silver pipework is Baytown. Less than 30 miles from Houston, it looks like something out of Blade Runner and is the single largest oil refinery in the whole of the US. With over 5,000 miles of metal piping spread across 2,400 acres, this place can refine 560,000 barrels of crude oil every day. Not only does it get incredibly hot here, the noise is so deafening, its 4,000-strong workforce get through over 1 million ear protectors every year. This place is so huge, as well as Texan crude oil, it also sucks in supplies from all around the world. To satisfy Baytown's thirst, vast 300-meter-long tankers arrive at the specially constructed docks. Over 20 of these massive vessels arrive every month, each one delivering up to 3 million barrels from their huge holds. As much oil as every well in Texas produces in 3.5 days.
The thing about crude oil is it's crude. Even if you could get that stuff into your petrol tank and somehow set fire to it, it wouldn't provide the instant explosive power that internal combustion craves. To be honest, you'd be better off coating your driveway with it than driving with it. To become usable fuel, it has to be refined.
So at the heart of the refinery lies the laboratory, headed by Joyce Bussey. It's up to Joyce's lab to supervise the process of turning the crude oil into usable products.
Crude oil in this state is not very useful at all. If you put this in your tank, you'd be sorry because it wouldn't go anywhere.
The trouble with crude oil is it contains a mix of hydrocarbons, each of which has a different number of carbon atoms. The hydrocarbons are different in weight. The lightest is propane, while the heaviest is used to make asphalt. Extracting petrol from this mix is a formidable challenge, and it requires one heck of a chemistry set to do it. The most important part of the plant is this. Like a moonshine still as tall as a cathedral, this is where the crude is separated. Heated to over 370 degrees Celsius, it's pumped into the base of the tower, and like steam from a kettle, the vapor rises. As it cools, the molecules condense. They're heavy asphalt and tar at the bottom, while lighter molecules, including diesel, jet fuel and petrol, continue rising until they too condense and can be siphoned off. But the trouble with producing all this fuel is they now have an ocean of potentially explosive liquid to deal with. But of course, it's this explosive quality that makes petrol so useful. So to make sure it's as explosive as it should be, it's up to workers like Derek Smalley to carefully take samples for analysis in the lab. In all, every 159-litre barrel of crude produces 73 litres of petrol, 35 litres of diesel, around 20 litres of jet fuel and heavy fuel oil, almost 6 litres of propane, and another 34 litres of other products, such as butane, asphalt and sulphur. Every day, this plant produces enough petrol to fuel a car on 770 round trips to the moon. Unless, of course, you drive a 4x4, in which case you may have to fill up halfway. Anyway, Derek delivers his samples to the lab for testing.
Our lab does the final product check of all product that goes out of the refinery. And if it doesn't meet our customer's expectation, it doesn't go out the gate.
The fuel is tested by feeding it to a petrol connoisseur, an aging but robust knock testing engine. Engine knocking happens when fuel spontaneously ignites as it's being compressed in the engine cylinder. The reason for this premature ignition is there's too much heptane and not enough octane in the mix. By increasing the percentage of octane, the mix can be improved until the knocking stops. The lab can then feed their data back into the main refinery to correct any mixing errors and ensure a perfect blend. With the refinery's work done, some of her 500,000 valves are opened, and the petrol flows through underground pipelines, which feed it to various local terminals like this one in South Houston. From here it's transferred to huge tankers for delivery by drivers like Bradley Unruh. But filling up a tanker is way more dangerous than simply filling up your car.
It can be dangerous, but just being a good, cautious, alert driver really helps.
The hundreds of litres of volatile cargo mean it's essential Bradley follows stringent safety procedures. A mistake while loading or unloading the tank could result in a serious explosion, so he takes no chances. The metal bodywork can generate sparks from static electricity, so first a cord is attached to ground the trailer, and also activate the overfill protection probes at the top of each compartment. To cope with the threat of highly flammable vapors escaping, a second pipe, known as the vapor recovery pipe, siphons off any leaks, which might otherwise escape into the atmosphere. Only once these are in place can Bradley connect the fuel lines and begin to pump. Every day, over 4 million litres of petrol are safely transported to local gas stations from this terminal alone. Pumped into the service station's huge reservoir, the petrol is finally ready for use. So you can at least find solace in the extraordinary work it's taken to keep your wheels turning the next time you fill up your car and grimace at the cost of your fuel.
But until your futuristic flower-powered flying car comes along, you just have to grin and bear it.
Let us further analyze the video with the help of guide questions. What is joint cost? A joint cost is the result of producing two or more different products from a single cost factor. It may be defined as the cost incurred to produce two or more different products by processing one or more raw materials through a common production process or a series of production processes. What are the joint costs? The joint costs includes the costs of acquiring, processing, transporting, and refining a barrel of crude oil. But there are no specific joint costs mentioned in the shown video. What is split-off point? A split-off point is a location in a production process where jointly manufactured products are henceforth manufactured separately. Thus, their costs can be identified individually after the split-off point. Can you identify the split-off point? The split-off point in crude oils is called refining. It essentially consists of primary separation processes and secondary conversion processes. It begins with the distillation process, wherein after the oil is superheated it becomes vapor. Through the use of oil refinery plants, the liquid is easily collected and separated by lighter, medium and heavier weight. The lightest fractions vaporize and rise to the top of the distillation tower, where they condense back to liquids. Medium weight liquids stay in the middle of the distillation tower. Heavier liquids separate lower down in the distillation tower, while the heaviest fractions with the highest boiling points settle at the bottom of the tower. Followed by the cracking process, which maximized the usefulness of heavy oil. The succeeding phase is the reforming process, which increases the amount of the production of petrol from crude oil. Next is blending, which is responsible for mixing the various refinery products to make a finished petroleum fuels gasoline. Lastly, is the process of treating that is in charge of producing cleaner petroleum for the protection of both the environment and humans' health. What is joint products? Joint products are individual products, each with significant sales value, which are produced when two or more products are produced simultaneously from a common set of inputs by a single process and are indistinguishable from one another up to the point of separation. What were the joint products of the process? Based on the video that was presented, the production process of crude oil results in the production of various joint products, which includes petrol, diesel, jet fuel, heavy fuel oil, and propane. What is byproducts? Byproducts or scrap are the products that come out incidental to the joint process, but still saleable. It is a secondary unit produced in a joint production process that has little value in relation to the main product being produced. Did it produce any byproduct or scrap? Can you identify it? Yes. Crude oil produces different types of finished secondary oil products such as butane, asphalt, sulfur, refinery gas, ethane, LPG, naphtha, gasoline such as aviation gasoline and motor gasoline, kerosene-type jet fuel, bitumen, lubricant, paraffin waxes, petroleum coke, white spirit plus SBP. How will you compute the cost of each product? To determine the cost of each product of crude oil, there are two methods that can be used: the physical output or average unit cost method, and the net realizable value method, specifically, the market value at split-off point. First, physical output or average unit cost method. What is physical output or average unit cost method? As the name implies, an average unit cost is calculated and used to apportion a joint production cost among all the joint products. The average unit cost is calculated by dividing the total joint production cost incurred by the total number of units of joint products produced. The average cost method is also known as the weighted average method. Why physical method is applicable? Based on the output of the products, this mode of allocation can be used, because each product can be based on physical measures such as volume, tons, gallons, liters, barrels, or any other common measure of physical quality. Furthermore, there are unstable changes in the prices of these products, specifically petrol, since its prices fluctuate because of seasonal changes in demand and in gasoline specifications. Second, net realizable value method. What is net realizable value method? The net realizable value method allocates joint costs on the basis of the final sales value less separable costs necessary to prepare and dispose of the products. That price is paid after all production costs, whether they are joint costs or separable costs incurred after split-off. Why market value at split-off point is applicable? By the time the crude oil is already processed through the oil refinery plant, it produces the final products right after the split-off point. That's why this is the kind of net realizable method that is also applicable, as these products are readily available for sale at the split-off point, and it does not have additional cost or does not require further processing to become marketable.